there's such an incredible opportunity. There really is, guys. Like all of this craziness, I know it feels crazy and all the gender stuff and the race stuff and the media stuff. Like it's a lot, but what it really also leads us to is that there's huge opportunity here, right? It really is the truth. So how are Republicans or conservatives or just relatively sane people, disaffected liberals, how are they going to save this thing? Elon Musk, and you know, I often talk about Elon Musk because of the Twitter thing, but he's right in the center of things, I think, in many ways, not only because of his pedigree and the work that he does and Starlink and Tesla and the Boring Company and all of that stuff, but because I think he represents a certain shifting of things. He represents a sort of Gen X guy who gets technology, who's not particularly political, but he's become political, someone who's mostly a liberal his whole life, but is now starting to move to, say, a more, I would say, like a post-liberal thing, something like that. So he had an interesting tweet 2 days ago that I want to read to you. He was responding to somebody else, and he said, Trump would be 82 at the end of term, which is too old to be chief executive of anything, let alone the United States of America. If DeSantis runs against Biden in 2024, then DeSantis will win easily. He doesn't even need to campaign. Now, I put out a little Twitter thread responding to Elon that really caught fire yesterday, and I think it gets to the heart of what's going on here, and I want to show it to you. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And I know the locals community is talking about it, and it's blowing up sort of across platforms right now. So I quote tweeted him. I said, the problem is that Biden isn't running, meaning isn't running again. He served his purpose. As for Trump, he has to decide whether he wants to be kingmaker or go for gold in a system which will never allow him to have it. Either way, Elon is paving the way for cowardly libs to vote DeSantis, which is good. I continued. In a follow-up tweet, Elon Musk said that he felt Trump was a bull in a china shop. And that's true. But there is no metaphor of a panther in a china shop who slyly lets himself in and knocks off a few selective items. I made that point to Eric Weinstein in 2017. And then there's Eric referring to my comment on that. And I think I've got one more tweet here. My hope is that Trump and DeSantis will work it out privately. There is a huge opportunity to fix the country right now, and there are very few voters who can actually be swayed. But the non-insane libs, Bill Maher, Barry Weiss, Joe Rogan, could probably move a lot of people to DeSantis. My guess is that the Maher, Weiss, Hollyweird crowd will go down with the Dem ship, but Rogan Musk types will go to DeSantis. The latter is a way bigger group of people. Regardless, the question still remains, what does Trump really want? So the reason I wanted to read this to you, because it's not, it sort of caught fire online, but I think I'm getting to the heart of it, and it's why I end up talking about Elon Musk so often, Bill Maher so often, the ex-libs so often, and all that. Because if you think about the election this way, or you just think about America this way, the most people at this point, the huge swath of people have made their mind up. So if we're to believe that 81 million people voted for Joe Biden and 75 million voted for Trump, and let's not factor in a certain amount of people die, you get a certain amount of new voters. Okay, let's say those are roughly what the numbers are, right? Well, how many people that voted for Trump out of those 75 million are going to look at what's happened in this country and be like, I'm either voting for Biden, who is not going to run. Biden's obviously not running, and he may not, my guess is he doesn't make it to the end of the 4 years. But how many of them are going to be like, I'm voting for Biden or whoever's following up Biden, be it Kamala Harris or anyone else that they throw in there, Gavin Newsom? Like, boy, the policies of the Democrats have really been good over these years. The high tax stuff, the locking us in our house stuff, the inflation stuff, all these things by the Democrats have been good. There's almost no argument that anyone who voted Trump or is a conservative or a Republican would be like, oh, that thing is better. Now, there is an argument, obviously, that people who just had Trump derangement syndrome and just could not get there on Trump, or had completely legitimate reasons not to like Trump, or whatever it might be, that they might go, boy, after 4 years of Biden and the Dems and big government and big taxes and lockdowns and COVID, and that I am just going to vote the other way. I've started waking up a little bit, and I care more about states' rights and I want lower taxes. There's definitely an argument that people could move that way. Okay, so that's one piece of this. But the other piece of this is, if you take those two groups, right, and let's say the bulk of those people aren't going to move, who are the people that could move right now? Well, it's basically the non-woke liberals. That's why I reference those people. That's why I talk about the Bill Mahers and the Rogans often, because it's the people who should, at this point, fully get it. Those are the only people. And they're just representatives of people, right? So they're just avatars in this equation. But it's you watching this, or it's your brother or cousin or friends or coworkers. These people who always thought they were liberal their whole lives, who may be old school liberals. I wrote a book about it. Who must now come around. I think that's the only voting bloc in America right now that there's actual fluidity to, where they actually might say, hey, I've had enough of the Democrat Party and I'm going to move. So that's why I think it's so important to talk about, because those are the people that can move it. If you only go to the base all the time, if you only talk about the base, then you're not going to move a lot of people. I would say all that couched in, it's why the DeSantis thing makes sense. All of the people who had the Trump derangement stuff, it's like, well, they didn't, it wasn't necessarily the policies. People remember that the country was in good shape, the economy was doing well, and all of those things. So it's like DeSantis, he's fought the machine, he fights the media. It's all the stuff that Joe Scarborough was making fun of him for, and the only reason Joe Scarborough is making fun of him is because he knows he's actually accomplishing things. But he has the policy. We know he knows how to staff properly. And he doesn't have all the baggage that Trump had. But all of that being said, Trump has to decide what he wants to do. And that really is the X factor in this entire thing, right? That is the one piece of this that's floating in the ether, that until Trump officially says he's going to do it, or maybe Trump's going to wait to the midterms, see that the Republicans are going to crush it, see that DeSantis obliterates the opponents. There are basically no opponents here in Florida, and wins this tremendously or hugely, as he would say. And then he's like, you know what, I will support the guy and I'll go out there and I'll campaign for him and everything else. So that's kind of where we're at. So again, to wrap this whole thing up, it's like liberals, if you just look at it, they used to think that abortion was safe, legal, and rare. That was the sane thing. And now it's basically pregnancy centers equate to Al-Qaeda. So if you're a sane liberal, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Well, it's on you.